if you don't want to be a member, you know.
Yeah. They don't force you.
And we'll welcome you either way.
Right. Okay, friends, we are live, so we'll start our class. And if I just have to ask if we hear the doorbell, if one of you guys can run out and open it up for us for security, we want to keep it close. So we have some new friends with us. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Kagan Parr. I spoke about my mic here about weeks ago about converting, so starting that process. This is my fiance, Michaela.
Hi.
Wonderful. So welcome. We have lots. Hopefully, you've connected with Rob, our most recent Jew by Choice. But we have people of all levels and all experiences here. So welcome. Today we are going to first carry on with our discussion of what we do this series, where we'll talk about, we've talked in general about what are the differences between denominations. Last time we talked about some of the key aspects of Reform, Conservative, the Constructionist Renewal, the detailed aspects of the different Orthodox denominations, Haredim, Hasidim, Chabad, all these sort of aspects. And hopefully it gave a nice overview as to what we're going to go into. Today is the first day that we're going to take on a topic and we're going to parse it throughout the different denominations. And this particular topic, it's complicated and has a lot of text, so I want to make sure that we get to it right away. The topic we're going to discuss today is the idea of matrilineal and patrilineal descent. So come on in, guys.
How are people can get into the link?
If they ring the doorbell, one of our friends will go and get it.
We'll hear it in here.
Yeah. So the topic again that we're going to be talking about today, matrilineal and patrilineal descent. What this is a discussion on is who is a Jew, basically, from the bloodline point of view. Meaning, matrilineal descent is the idea that the Jewish gene or Jewish religiosity is passed on through the mother or recognized as passed on through the mother. Patrilineal descent is through the father. We will see as we discuss this two important things. One, how the different denominations view this topic, and it is a relatively hot topic in terms of identifying Jewish identity. The second thing that we should also be discussing, that we will inevitably discuss, is the other aspects of being Jewish, that the tribal aspect, the genealogical bloodline is only one of the many aspects in how we identify a Jew, at least certain denominations. It's important that we understand between of Jewish identity, from the tribal Israelites to the kingdom, living within a kingdom, to a diaspora community, an exiled community, to moving into a worship idea and religiosity of religious affiliation, and how all of that sort of combined together. Okay, but as I said, there's a lot of text that we're going to do because it's a in-depth issue. I want to make sure that we fully understand what we're talking about, so I want to get moving. Any quick questions on the basics of matrilineal or patrilineal descent before we go into the text itself? We're going to read the actual response of the rabbinic ideas and answers from different denominations on this topic specifically. Yeah, Rob?
How does this Ruth fit into all of this genealogy, seeing that she was the first convert?
That is a separate conversation in regards to Jew by choice, right? Is the idea of Jew by choice. So Ruth, you're right in terms of where you go, I will go is the first idea of the origin of Jewish conversion. That is outside the realm of matrilineal, patrilineal descent. It's a whole different sort of ballgame.
Okay.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Done. Okay. Yes, 3, 4, 5, 6. Today he wanted a live version, so. So I wanted us to, at the very beginning, take a look at what the CCAR has to say. Once again, the Central Conference of American Rabbis. This is the Reform Conference of Rabbis, of which I am a member, that comes together at least once a year and discusses aspects like this, questions that people have. We continue the ongoing halakhic discussion as to how to bring Jewish law into modernity. And we do this as a group, as a conference, but of course there are leaders, those who are experts in Jewish law, experts in Jewish responsa, Talmud, Midrash, who sit on these committees, who can provide us with a great deal of knowledge and can help us. Once again, a quick revamp in terms of the idea of responsa. Responses are advisory. They are not halakhic law in the view of Reform Judaism. We strongly encourage that the responsa are adhered to because they are what the rabbis understand. However, it is, of course, as we said in the first class, open to each congregation with that autonomy to decide, yes, we agree with this responsa, no, we do not. It's our hope as rabbis that you listen to us, but you don't have to. So that is an important part of Reform Judaism, okay? So this, by the way, this goes, this page, this next page, and then to the half of the next page is abbreviated, if you can imagine it. These responsa are extremely long and extremely complicated. They have to give you lots of backdrop and lots of information, as they should. No decision should be made just simply quickly, okay? All of these decisions are made with a great deal of research. So, yeah.
So are these commentaries taken together with research into the Midrash and Mishnah both?
And Talmud and medieval sources, everything.
And then they kind of,
From those, so it's a great question, Rob. How do you form a responsa? The responsa is you take the laws of the Torah and the Tanakh, you take the Midrash and the Mishnah and the Talmud, the rabbinic texts of the 2nd to the 5th century. You take the medieval commentators, Rashi, Rambam, Ibn Ezra, Sorno. You take the philosophy and logic of the later commentators, and you take science and logic and modern ethics and modern morality to decide how we should and can interpret it. In other words, just like we said before, anything that Reform Judaism does is always based in some way on halakhic law, on Jewish law. Nothing is done simply because. It is done because there is precedent that we find in one of the rabbinic texts or an interpretation of precedent. That makes sense.
yes.
Wonderful. So this was a responsa that was written in 1983. It has done fine so far since then. And all of these responsa can be found online. Okay. According to the halakha, Jewish law, by traditional Jews over many centuries, the offspring of a Jewish mother and a non-Jewish father is recognized as a Jew, while the offspring of a non-Jewish mother and a Jewish father is considered a non-Jew. To become a Jew, the child of the non-Jewish mother and a Jewish father must undergo conversion. Note that this is setting you up for what is called traditional Jews, okay? As much as I hate the word tradition, which you all know, what they're referring to here is the Talmudic aspects which evolved into the Shulchan Aruch, the Orthodox idea of law, making it that this is simply, on the most Orthodox traditional side, this is how halakha is interpreted. So on the Orthodox side, from the Talmudic rabbis onward, this is where we're going to begin. As a Reform community, it continues, the process of determining an appropriate response has taken us to an examination of the tradition, which, by the way, we do all the time. That's exactly what Reform does. We take a look at the tradition. our own earlier responses, and a most current consideration. In doing so, we seek to be sensitive to the human dimensions of this issue. In other words, according to Reform Judaism, and this is the beauty of Reform Judaism, the law is simply not the law. There are things to consider. There's humanity's changes, there's ethics, there's morality, there's our own experiences to consider. We have to re-examine this issue. Both the biblical and rabbinical traditions, meaning anything that occurs in the Tanakh and in the rabbinical writings, so we're talking about up to the Talmud in the 5th century, take for granted that ordinarily the paternal line is decisive in tracing the descent within the Jewish people. Let's pay attention to that very quickly. What did we just read? According to the Tanakh, it's through the father. Okay? According to the rabbis, it's through the father. How did we get to matrilineal descent? Okay. The biblical genealogies in Genesis and elsewhere in the Bible attest to this point. The intertribal, again, the Bible talks from a tribal point of view, okay? Israelites, Amorites, all these sort of ideas, Canaanites, everything was tribal, okay? Intertribal marriage in ancient Israel. Paternal descent was decisive. This makes sense, friends, because it was a very patriarchal society. It mattered about who the son was. The son was the one who was going to own land, all these sort of aspects. There were, of course, exceptions like Zelophehad's daughters and those sort of aspects, but for the most part, it was through the father. Numbers 1, 2, etc., by their families, by their fathers' houses. Okay? Lemishbechotam levit avotam, meaning in Numbers, you count people by their fathers, by their families. Which the rabbis mean this line, literally family, mishpacha of the family is recognized. The line of the mother is not. Mishpachat av kerua mishpachat mishpacha. Mishpachat ina kerua mishpacha. Bava Batra 109. This comes from the Talmud, Bava Batra 109. Literally, the line of the father is recognized, the line of the mother is not. It's also seen in other Talmudic lines, Yevamot 54b, and Yad Nachalot 1.6. Okay?
Are those authors then?
No, these are names of tractates, names of chapters in the Talmud.
Okay.
I got a question. I've read somewhere, heard somewhere that, okay, modern day Israel, don't they consider, like, let's say for citizenship or to be Jew or whatever, it's from the mother?
Yes,
So where does,
we're going to get there. We're at the very beginning. We're at the very beginning, Brian. Don't worry.
okay, because you said tribal and I thought, okay,
Yeah.
well,
No problem. We'll get there. It's a good question. Yes. According to the Orthodox, yes. And according to Israel, it is through the mother. Here we're talking about the father. The question we'll find out is, how do we get there? So, okay. In the rabbinic tradition, the tradition remains in force. The offspring of a male Kohen, one of the Aaron line, the priestly line, who marries a Levite, a priest, or an Israelite, is considered a Kohen, meaning your priestly status is gone through the males. So people who call themselves Kohens or Kohens now trace their lineage back through the father. Thus, yichus, meaning lineage, regards the male line as absolutely dominant. This ruling is stated succinctly in Mishnah Kedushin in the 2nd century, in that when Kedushin, marriage, is illicit and not transgression, in Avorah is involved, the line follows the father. Okay. Furthermore, the most important parental responsibility to teach Torah rested with the father. Obviously, at that time, patriarchal reasons, men were the only ones who were able to even study Torah. And this went up to Shulchan Aruch, Yoredea. Okay. However, as we keep going, since emancipation, Jews have faced the problem of mixed marriage and the status of offspring of mixed marriage. Emancipation meaning the first assimilation during the time of after Napoleon, when Jews were finally given citizen status. We were able to assimilate for the first time. Obviously, we started to meet other chicks. The Reform movement responded to the issue. In 1947, the CCR adopted a proposal by the Committee on Mixed Marriage and Intermarriage. This issue was again addressed in the 1961 edition of the Rabbi's Manual. In other words, this came up from time to time for our predecessors in the early 20th century. Rabbis were asked to do marriages. We wanted to know how it would happen. We wanted to know what was going to happen to the kids. Jewish law recognizes a person as Jewish if his mother was Jewish. This is traditional Judaism, even though the father was not a Jew. Okay, that's important. Traditional Judaism doesn't care if the father was Jewish or not. The bloodline, the Jewishness, according to Jewish tradition, goes through the mother. Okay? One born of such mixed parentage may be admitted to membership in the synagogue and enter into marital relationship with a Jew, provided he has not been reared in or formally admitted in some other faith. Finally, friends, we are starting to see the other aspect of this, that there is some nurture to this, okay, not just nature, meaning that if you are the son of a Jewish mother, but you have never opened a book of Judaism and you have been raised in Christianity, you cannot simply walk into a synagogue and say, my mom is Jewish, I'm Jewish. That's just not how it works. You have to understand that being a Jew takes on more than that, okay? The child of a Jewish father and a non-Jewish mother, according to traditional law, is a Gentile, okay? Meaning, upsettingly, such a person would have to be formally converted in order to marry a Jew or become synagogue member. In other words, if your father is a Jew, this is according to tradition, if your father is a Jew and your mother is not, and you have been raised in Judaism all your life, in certain denominations, you are still not recognized as a Jew, okay? Obviously, our Reform rabbis found some problems with that, okay? Reform Judaism, however, here's where Reform Judaism stands. Accepts such a child as Jewish without formal conversion if he attends a Jewish school and follows a course of studies leading to confirmation. Such procedure is regarded as sufficient evidence that the parents and the child himself intend that he shall live as a Jew. In other words, friends, it made no sense to the rabbis that someone who had never experienced Judaism or had briefly experienced Judaism or lives as a secular Jew and his mother was Jewish was recognized as a membership more easily than a young man who had been reared his entire life in Judaism and whose father taught him Judaism. Basically, the Reform rabbi said, that doesn't make any sense. He's lived as a Jew. He was born into Judaism. He's gone to religious school and Hebrew school. He's been a confirmand. He's become bar mitzvah. And this, by the way, is bat mitzvah in women too. It's not just men. And now he wants to marry a Jewish woman. Hooray. We should say, this is a Jew, okay? Keep in mind, though, what the rabbis are saying is, we accept a child without form in this way, is that if there is a young man who is born of a Jewish father and not a Jewish mother, and doesn't have a great deal of Jewish experience, isn't reared in the synagogue and wants to become Jewish, it makes sense that a formal, informal conversion happen, meaning that no matter who you were born to, if you know nothing about Judaism and you want to join, you need to learn about Judaism, okay? That's what we mean by a formal conversion, okay? Whether or not we take that person to a dip in the mikvah and officially do that, that's sort of an individual case in Judaism. And a situation, this is 1983, due to the change a child of a Jewish mother will be Jewish any more than the child of a non-Jewish mother will not be. In other words, you have to understand the influences that this child is going to have. When I have a couple, I say,
If a child,
cases, they're talking about in here in terms of fathers leading to confirmation. In other words, Brian, what they're saying is, if gone through religious school and Hebrew school and gone through those life cycle event formation, like if you're along that line, there's not a you need to be consecrated.
but if you're recognized by, let's say, the accepted Jewish community, let's say if one was bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, okay, so recognized as being Jewish.
Well, in order to be again to become bar mitzvah, yes, you already have to be doing that.
But okay, but let's say,
So this would all take place before bar and bat mitzvah.
oh,
Okay. This leads us, therefore, the American rabbis declare that the child of one Jewish parent is under the presumption of Jewish descent. This was a miracle in Judaism. That line shook the foundations with something other denominations had never done before. One Jewish parent means we presume Jewish descent.
What year was that?
1980 formal acts of identification with the Jews was Jewish. The mitzvot, meaning the commandment covenant. So a Brit Milah, a study. Okay, for those beyond childhood claiming Jewish identity, other public acts and declarations, or substituted after consultation with their rabbi. Always there's individual cases, friends. If there's someone who's in their 40s who finds out that their mother was Jewish, conversion rite, or if, where you poke them to draw a little blood, okay? Or we would ritually declare yourself a member of the Jewish faith, not simply by just my mom or my dad was Jewish. Does that make sense to everybody? Start with the Reform side first, okay, to let you know where we are, okay? We're going to go into conservative and orthodoxy, and we'll see where they're starting to get this flip from patrilineal to matrilineal descent. It is very, very vexing that tribal and Bible and bloodlines ideas are totally different. They still hold their ground. We're going to see their viewpoint. We're going to read from their words why it's only through the mother. Okay? Yes, Jen?
Okay, so listen, depending on Jewish, because my mom, I'm not gonna tell him, no, I'm not gonna tell him to put his penis. But anyway, but in that.
I won't.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah.
But in that, over being Jewish,
Mhm.
and I would hate for us to make it really difficult for them to come back or come to the Christian.
Doing that, and that's a fair point, Jan. We're not trying to make it more difficult. We're not trying to not just being, right? And not simply just about belief, right? It's also about how you live. What are the texts that you study, you perform? How does Jewishness come into your home life in those sort of ways? In essence, we're not trying to test them or anything. We're trying to help educate full opportunity. We want them to recognize what that means. They may not know. It means more simply than just believing in one God and coming to Oneg. You know, there's other aspects that we believe in.
Yes.
Great.
And
Yeah.
is it still true that if somebody wants to convert, we used to turn them away 3 times? What-
That's old school.
Okay.
Yeah. The idea, though, where it comes from is, along the same lines that you're asking. Okay, and the side to become Jewish, it's not a flick of a switch. You have a new worship to learn. You have new diets to learn. You have new stuff to do. You have a way to do something from the rabbinic assemblance group together and does the same things that we do. And they have their own resolution, always about 3 years behind us, conservative movement. We're also coming to conservative synagogues. My mother was Jewish and my father was. Jewishness is defined either by lineage or through custom and standards in the conservative movement, as on several occasions written to matrilineal descent, which has been authoritative and normative Judaism centuries as the sole authoritative for many centuries. Ages, okay, of conversion, there comes before that, but in order to officially switch over, the woman goes in the mikvah, but also has a brit milah, a circumcision, or hatafat brit. Advocated. Okay. And whereas the Committee of Jewish Law and Standards has long advocated that members of the rabbinic and assist those who wish to approach Judaism in a serious fashion and to convert to Judaism is the requirement for conversion, including those steps outlined above. By the way, fulfills their requirements, okay, for conversion. Not everyone's fulfilled. The Committee on Jewish Law and Standards recommends Jewish lineage or ceremonial act on the basis of anything other than matrilineal descent, or B, supervision of a conversion which omits Tevilah, the immersion, in the case of female law, in the case of males, shall continue to be regarded as violation of conservative Judaism. In other words, no. Okay? They said any other lineage through anything other than matrilineal descent besides conversion doesn't fly with them. Okay? Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
would they accept or if the father is Jewish and the mother is not Jewish.
And they want
No,
to be
if
Jewish.
they have a biological child, but the father is Jewish and they want to raise them as Jewish, can they do the same thing you would do if your child was adopted?
Actually, yes. So if you adopt a child, and child conversion is such a sort of situation because they're kids, but the idea, the idea of it is that a kid would go into the mikvah and you could, and poke the, for a kid, and that would take that first moment, and then the conversion would be them living a life through Judaism and going away. In other words, we had a circumcision here, and the father was Jewish and the mother wasn't. So the text, the Orthodox Jewish text, was not that this person becomes a Jew, but this becomes in making them a Jew, right? Because they're young, they don't have to go through a year with me. They live a life as Jewish, and that eventually becomes recognized as not the child. That's where it starts, right? When you get the adopted child.
So you could do that in like conservative or Orthodox Judaism, maybe if it was, I guess they don't accept interfaith marriage though.
Correct. Right. Okay, yeah. So, right, assembly and being a case of extra circumstances. In other words, friends, the conservative movement, that's really all it's saying. It doesn't say that first line takes care of it. Jewishness is defined through lineage or through conversion, and this has been authoritative and normative Judaism for many centuries. In other words, this is what was in Shulchan Aruch. This was what you can date back to the Talmud. It is the normative idea, the majority opinion. Okay, there's always the minority. Since Matan Torah, since the Torah was given, the idea lineage through matrilineal descent is law. And what the conservative movement is saying is, that's it. And it goes farther to say, if you don't adhere to that, that's a violation of Jewish law. Much so to say that you're in trouble if you're a conservative rabbi and you don't adhere to these practices. Strong enough that it was 2,000 years old law, and they seem to be sort of in a backwards direction. Yes and no, we go back and forth. Reform was first, conservative afterwards, and then before that. The reason is I want you to see us looking back to see how this sort of argument got to where we are. Okay. The conservative movement was 100 years after the Reform movement, and it was in between Orthodoxy. On certain aspects, it aligned itself sort of on the Orthodox side. Okay. The answers are B. So E adduces that the law of matrilineal descent from the Torah, for he will turn away your son from following me, and they will worship the gods of others. Take a moment to read that a couple times, friends. This is their proof text. Okay, this is the proof text that the Orthodox and the conservative use. Very clear, you don't intermarry. 2, you shall not give your intermarry. You won't let your children intermarry. The reason why is the proof text. For he will turn away your son from following me, and they will the others. Okay, the understanding. For he, as the non-Jewish father, meaning you're a Jew, you have a son, okay, and Jewish father, okay, will turn your son away, okay, the Talmud away from Adonai, meaning the Jewish, in terms of the capital meaning God, turn your son Jewish God. The Talmud understands that the offspring of a non-Jewish father and a Jew further, okay? This is classic Talmudic thinking, okay? Meaning the Shulchan opinion. The classical halakhic text raises any evidence of a differing rule about this Jewish law. Spoiler alert, that is a lie. Spoiler alert, that is a lie. Okay? Feel are authoritative. Okay? Of the Talmud and the Mishnah, put them together and said, you don't need the minority opinions anymore. This is simply how it is. Okay? Other guy say, and the other guy, the reason why one day it doesn't work anymore, instead of starting over, what did the minority opinion say? Hey, that one works. That's been done tons of times. Okay? Shulchan Aruch took Shulchan Aruch.
Agrees with you.
Yeah.
You know, eventually if you research and have to find some